para cerrar la franja de la mañana, dos de las voces más relevantes en el pronóstico de tendencias. Por un lado, David SHAH, alemán viviendo en Holanda, TrendSetter, creador y director de Metropolitan Publishing, responsable de las increíbles publicaciones View que todos conocemos, y editor para Pantone. Es además profesor en ArtEZ, Academia de Arte y Diseño de Holanda. Welcome, Mr. SHAH. Rosalina Villanueva, mexicana viviendo en New York. Es diseñadora, consultora de tendencias y conferencista internacional. Está acá con nosotros gracias a una especial concesión de WGSN, una marca Essential. Bienvenida, Rosalina. Esta conversación será moderada por VANESSA ROSALES, escritora e historiadora colombiana, con magíster en periodismo y en estudios de moda, creadora y directora del diplomado en estudios críticos de moda de la Universidad Jorge Tadeo Lozano de Bogotá. Bienvenidos.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in my own city to talk about fashion. As we know, fashion has always been related to time. It's always sought, or it's always seeking the present, the future, I'm sorry, but it's also very much about capturing the present or the spirit of the times or the zeitgeist. And certainly trends, I mean, as a historian and as a cultural critic, I understand trends as an index of both the future of fashion and the present of fashion. And today in this panel, I mean to discuss with two wonderful experts on what is the current state of trends, how the COVID pandemic has had an impact on these social patterns that we're seeing. So I would like to give a very warm welcome to David SHAH and Rosalina Villanueva, who are with me today virtually. I think that it would be important to ask both of you briefly to establish a bit of the historical and cultural concept, like a historical and cultural context for the concept of trends. David, it would be lovely to hear from you how it looked like in the 1970s, which is a very significant time when it comes to the moment in which fashion started to recycle, to look towards its past. And Rosalina, it would be wonderful to get a more contemporary viewpoint as with your expertise in WGSN. So as I understand, this is a huge topic. I know that it can be a little challenging, but it would be wonderful to start the audience with a general context of how trends used to be, how they shifted, and how they look today. So David?
Well, as you say, Vanessa, that's a huge question. I'm probably the oldest person around in this whole conference. I started completely by accident in fashion. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I did Latin and Greek, and I got into it by complete accident, but I'm very glad I got into it. But when I started in textiles and writing about fashion, there was absolutely nothing about trends. There were no trends. We used to go to a show in Germany called Interstoff. It was about 1 million manufacturers. You couldn't get a taxi. You were camping 20 miles away from the exhibition. And everybody was drunk half the time, partying, having love affairs. And nobody sort of looked at textiles. They just did the business. But remember, this all started because a lot of people had to come to Europe from Australia, particularly America, who came to Paris and Italy to look at the trends and to sort of buy garments, take them home and develop them, or should I say copy them. And then this kind of started off with people starting books here and there. Some big agencies started supplying all these foreign buyers with information in book form. And I had the pleasure of working with Nelly Rodi and Lee Edelcourt in the beginning of the 80s. And there was a show called Premier Vision. And suddenly, I've been to every Premier Vision, suddenly at the Premier Vision on Porte de Versailles in the early 80s, there were trends. And we started analyzing textiles and fashion and grouping it into looks and into trends. And this grew and grew and grew, and especially with the arrival of lifestyle. There was no lifestyle. Ralph Lauren started it with the first shop. So before, everybody just did what they wanted, and they went to bought couture, and they went into this and this. And then suddenly there was lifestyle, and everybody wanted to be part of lifestyle. And what was the lifestyle we were following? So trend became very important. Everybody wanted to know what was happening. And in the beginning, it was great because we told you what to do. We said, oh, it's going to be camouflage. It's going to be out of Africa because of the film. So everybody followed what we did, and we all earned a lot of money. But slowly, the market changed, largely with the arrival of the big store groups, Zara, H&M, who changed the face of retail and brought their own kind of trends into the market. And suddenly, we're in a situation where trends became very widespread, and suddenly the lifestyle and the consumer changed. The consumer got more and more clever, more and more intelligent. It wanted to be me, to be me, to be me. So what has happened now recently is where we were telling the world what to do and telling the consumer what to do, the consumer is now telling us what to do. So in my opinion, there is no such thing as trends anymore. There are directions and multiple directions. So we really have to sit and know what our customer wants before we go out there and give it to them. So they need us for guidance. They need us for confirmation. They want to know what's going on, but everybody's busy doing their own thing. So trends have changed from top down to now bottom up. I don't know what Rosalina feels, but I'm sure she kind of feels the same way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's interesting. Yeah, sorry, Rosalina. I wanted to ask you precisely because David was saying that, you know, it's all about multiple directions. And when you look at the more philosophical aspects of the fashion landscape, it's come to it being from a logic of like replacement to a logic of accumulation, which is what explains our eclecticism or our multiplicity. But I wanted to like maybe listen to you as because you started working with trends on a later moment than David, when trends were important, and you've been able to have an insider view of how they've changed. So it would be wonderful to hear like what's your take on the function and the cultural meaning of trends in the fashion industry today.
yeah. Well, I'm right now working for WGSN, but WGSN started in 1998. I was in high school by then. So I didn't I knew I wanted to study fashion, and I did go to fashion school, and I'm very glad I did. My parents thought that I wasn't going to like the school and I was gonna change to something else. And I find myself not trapped, but like really enamored with the career. And I start working right away. And then I loved doing everything. And I was very empiric at the beginning. I didn't know that like services existed for like give you guidance. I knew like trade shows were there for us to like have this kind of connection with the providers and the final materials, and you can get a sense of what was going on there. But when I first started, I definitely think many things have shifted since its day. We predicted trend in a very different way. We were familiar with like the sample shopping that David mentioned, mostly also in Latin America. I have like the like when I started my career, I started in Latin America. Until this day, even if I live in the United States, I still consult for only brands that are in Latin America, brands, schools, and everything else. But well, yeah, we were familiar with the shopping sample trips that they still happen to these days. And it is like for about to go, and you go a year in advance, you get those items, you kind of have like the trends from the trend forecasters that they're already here. And then this still is controversial till this time, because now you see what these services are telling you that you should do. And from a commercial perspective, especially in Latin America, you are afraid of having those trends in your store. Even if you have a year ahead to plan all the communication and everything, like you can still, as a brand, have the authority to tell them, well, now it's about crop tops and this is what you're gonna wear in the summer. But like still the clients feel afraid of having that authority and saying like, we're producing this and we really believe this is a trend and this is how you have to do it, especially when you have to have product produced overseas. And more nowadays that you still have to travel definitely to like get a sense what's going on there, what's going on with product, what's going on with other products. But at the end, I feel like nowadays we have the term that like is no longer called fast fashion. Is more like a real-time fashion, with the persons in the streets are telling you, this is what we want. We will like this kind of clothing. We will like this kind of like subject, mini themes going up, or fast fashion. Some of them are fast. as fads, but some of them are like stay a little bit longer. But it's not, what I sense is just not about product itself. It's about the values of the company that the consumer is asking for, like them to like change the perspective and change the results. And it's also about communications, because I can find the same t-shirt in many places and in very different price points. And at the end is like that bond that I create with brands or I create with the final product is more about that communication that the brand has that makes me decide that I want to pick them. That's also something that I think is shifted a lot since I started producing or like making collections with brands in Latin America.
It's very interesting because both your takes actually reflect or are able to mirror the ways in which fashion has become probably the most omnipresent or ubiquitous social phenomenon because of digital technologies and because of the changes in production and aesthetics that have been brought up by newer and faster cycles. But David, I would like to ask you about one of the factors or forces that have really or are having a deep effect, not just on fashion, but on humanity. And is, you know, it's about the general review of how COVID has shifted consumer attitudes and what people are buying in Europe, which is a very interesting take because we're going to have like the European vision with David and the Latinoamericana version with Rosalina.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you because I've got some pictures. I would like to wish the translators all best wishes and good luck to keep up with me. And I don't know if Laura Novick is around, but Laura, you got me into this, so I don't know if I should love you or not love you. But anyway, here goes. So let me know if it's okay. I hope you can see this okay.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So anyway, this is my magazines. I don't have to waste time with that. This is the color cards I make with Pantone, etc. So we're all having a party here in Europe. I live in Amsterdam, so we have got no rules at all. I was very impressed to see you all wearing masks, but we're not wearing masks at all. So we're all partying and people are making money again. I mean, Kering, all of them, Richemont, big profits, 30%, 50%. Zara saying, oh my God, we're back to pre-pandemic levels. Isn't everything great? But everything is not great, because we are coming out of this in a very divided way. The rich are richer and the poor are poorer, and all the problems of inequality we had before are still very, very much with us. And also, we've got COVID coming back here because we've taken out the pandemic and made it endemic and completely relaxed lockdown in a total way. And now we're going to pay the penalty probably of having more and more cases. We have a large amount of protest everywhere. There's protest. You would have seen this at the Louis Vuitton show. Wherever we look, climate, economy, jobs, masks, vaccines, protest, very, very strong. We don't have enough supply. The surge in demand has left all the shops empty because everybody demands, but the factories aren't working in Vietnam, the ships don't sail anymore, they can't find the cargo, they can't find the containers. So there's a whole shortage of product. We've got massive hikes in electricity prices and energy, which is destroying the industry and giving great insecurity. Rosalina was talking about time. We lived just in time, speed to market. We can't do that anymore because we can't plan in a normal way. So we're getting a bit shaky. Things are not going the way we like. Also, not just in America and London, but also China, the business is slowing down. The consumer has changed. And I'm very disappointed because I thought COVID would make us a more conscious, concerned consumer, buy less, buy better, buy sustainable. Not at all. Everybody's looking at price, and they're buying groceries, health products. Clothing is a very low priority for us in Europe, and they're shopping with big baskets. When we came out of it, the big thing was, what are we going to wear? You know, are we going to stick with tracksuits or what? So everybody said, yeah, we're going to dress up. So everybody said, yes, we're going to dress up. Last summer, I can tell you in Europe, it was big dresses, lots of flowers. And if it wasn't flowers, it was linen, ecru, natural colors. And for men as for women. Jeans came back. That was a big surprise. Not skinny, uncomfortable jeans, but denim came back. And swimwear. Nobody was going on a holiday, but everybody was buying swimwear to wear in the city. And of course, nature. We all fell in love with nature again. And we had this thing called cottage core, where everybody was going out pretending we lived in the country. David Beckham was wearing his farmer's cap, and we were all doing that. And now we've moved from cottage into regenerative sustainability, all based on this kind of undergrowth networks, etc., etc. Iris did her whole collection based on network nature, everything about connecting with the dark side of nature. And we all love mushrooms. Mushrooms for coffee, mushrooms to drink, mushrooms to help us with our mental problems. Stella did her whole collection based on mushrooms. So we're shifting our concept of sustainability into the darker side of sustainability. These are all the mushroom products. We call it goblin core, all the ugly side, the snails, the horrible moss, and all that. And even Pantone's ugliest color is now the fashion color. So really, really looking at things a different way. Next big thing, definitely a lot of preppy looks, largely thanks to the sort of series on Netflix, Sex Education, Gossip Girl, rugby shirts, all this kind of stuff. Big color, we love color. Not everybody's buying it, but we, especially at Pantone, love color. It's our protest against the situation. And the big debate was about glamour. All the fashionistas went for glamour. They tried to push glamour on the market. I don't know if it's going to work. All the shows in Milan and Paris were pushing a glamorous. Adele suddenly changed from Miss Normal into Miss Glamorous. And the other thing that came back was sex. I don't know what you did in Colombia about sex in COVID, but in Europe, we all found our own ways, and actually sex went down. We didn't discuss sex. And then suddenly, bang, COVID over, sex is back. And we had this whole corset thing from Bridgeton. We had Billie Eilish on the cover of Vogue, where Billie Eilish, she was saying, I don't sell my body for anything. Absolutely strong. It came from swimwear. It came from show your stomach. Then we had sexy swimwear. Then we had the under boob coming back, and suddenly we had the pin top. So everyone's like, oh, I've got it, I'm showing it, I'm doing it. And also in Milan, even Prada, sophisticated Prada, showing a lot of leg and back and the mini skirt. It was all disco, disco. So the big question was, what happened to all this? Well, I tell you, it's not going away. We're not talking about it, but believe me, we are all doing sport, and sport, especially thanks to the Chinese market, is still the big growth area of the future, backed by celebrities, backed by the catwalk, wherever you still see sport. And the other thing is comfort. I don't care what you say, comfort has changed. COVID brought us comfort, and we don't give up comfort. Nobody's wearing push-up bras. They're not wearing any bras at all, as you saw from my other photos. It's comfort, and it's big shapes, even M&S. It looks tailoring, but it's comfortable and elasticated. Big shapes, make it easy. No tough shoes. Clogs coming back, the whole return of Crocs and Birkenstock. And when there are heels, very, very selective. I like this Balenciaga where it sort of mixes the high heel with the croc. I thought that was absolutely spot on. We really got it right. And of course, a lot of knitting. So it's really whatever we talk about, whatever we're pushing, we can push the glamour, we can push the sex, which is very natural. But basically, I still insist that comfort and what athleisure brought us in terms of hybrid garments and knitting, which is a very comfortable, will be the dominant way of the future. Thank you very much. I'll get out of that. Sorry.
Wow, that was really a dazzling presentation, David. It's very illuminating. And I want to ask Rosalina about the emotional effect of COVID in younger consumers, which is like another phase or another aspect of how the pandemic has had an effect on the fashion industry and the spirit of the time.
Well, it's on the younger consumer and also in the older consumer. We are living in a financial anxiety pressure where we, as a strategy, we can add a value, which, as David said, people are looking for price still. So it's very hard to have a more sustainable way of buying and buying with or designing in a more conscious way, because the consumer is not definitely shifting to buying things that are going to necessarily be more expensive but last longer. But that's definitely on the channel. We also have health concerns. We experience it as older people. We're experiencing the lonely syndrome. And that is when community and promoting togetherness is also very important. We also have the quest of truth. We don't believe in anything that is out there. We have a very divided society with news, with misinformation that is like definitely hurting our society even more everywhere, not only Latin America. Globally, we have this very part views, almost 50-50 in every single country. And we also have safety fears where comfort and reassurance is super important as a strategy for resilience, or like anti-fragility, no longer resilient, because we have to adapt every single day of like whatever we were coming in 2020, whatever we're living, experiencing in 2021, and for now on. And for younger generations, we have to understand that the unpredictability of the pandemic and the months of physical distancing have disrupted definitely their lives or their parents, but also about the children across the globe. With heightened awarenesses around mental health, alphas, or the generation alpha, which is the younger generation, increasingly look for new resources to help them cope with anxiety, and then how to openly discuss their emotional needs, because they have so much interaction with technology, they have so much stimulation, but no one is really, or like not everyone is focusing on how they're feeling, how they're experiencing themselves being at home all the time with their parents, and like having to go to school in this new way of shape, or new form, that I have to be quite honest. I recently started to study some program on digital design, and I have to do everything online. And even for me, it was challenging to like have to present the homework with screenshots, and like have to understand all the lectures. Well, like the technology is there, but it's like it's a learning process also for education to like go and shift and do this everything online, and like to be able to be very clear for everyone on the other side. It was challenging for me. I can't imagine how challenging it is for younger generations. Mental health is also something that is very important to have in mind for younger generations. As kids return to school, there will be a growing awarenesses around the post-pandemic recovery of mental well-being. The strain of school closures, disrupt daily routines, and a lack of social interactions could lead to long-term behavioral problems among young children. I have some data here. I'll just like go through it very fast. According to YouGov's July survey of 2,000 parents, 36 of these kids have a feeling of they feel lonely or isolated, while 28 reported they were feeling a little bit anxious or were unable to sleep. I feel like that every day, but I'm not a 5-year-old kid. So it's like, why do they have to be experiencing all this? So children's emotional needs are completely being neglected at this moment. Elizabeth Rapa, researcher in the Department of Psychiatry of the University told BBC, they are now experts on viral transmission, but they are not being taught how they can talk about this and deal about such important things. So it's a lot of responsibility for younger generations, and how to learn on how to be like living a little more slow. Be aware of the importance of mental health, and how parents can also help them in the daily routines. Also, parents are going insane because they have to juggle the work and the parenting and the school, the online school that is, I'm pretty sure, is not easy for them. So what are the chief things here? In education, the global online education experience is paving the way for new tools to enhance the learning experience. EdTech definitely is rapidly gaining momentum, and the market is projected to triple by 2025. And online learning apps such as Suyo Bank raising 750 million in 2020. Education institutions are also increasingly looking to adopt new learning modalities, from live broadcast to virtual experience, and so on. IBM is doing an integration with Facebook to integrate AI and artificial intelligence to the programs. And as schools gear up to reopen, hybrid learning will emerge as a new normal. Definitely, we will have more students allowing to learn from anywhere they want. And for alphas, this increased flexibility can lead to something that they will be just a way of learning for them. Also, something else that has shifted is the way they play. raised obviously by experience-hungry millennial parents, the generations of Alpha will increasingly demand to play more in a more immersive, interactive, experiential way. So that's something else that we have to have in mind. Experts are raising concerns around the need of childhood play and less acknowledged facet of the pandemic fear. And some research from Flinders University stressed that young children opportunities for play and their ability to make decisions without imposed constraint are key aspects that can support well-being during this difficult time. As we previously noted in one of the reports about playing, business, and leisure with learning, the ability to play will become more important in tech-dominated world than ever before. Moving forward, companies may embrace play to cultivate creativity, develop emotional intelligence, and build empathy for Gen Alpha. And socializing. During the isolation, kids have developed unique social skills. They are not the same. They didn't go to preschool very early on. So they are more keen to have digital engagement while forming closer bonds with their parents because they're closer to them all the time. And these human connections are very important, but they continue to transform during crisis. Gen Alpha are cultivating new ways to socialize online with new friends, family, and they have this virtual play that's video chat, apps, kid-focused platforms, including Caribou and Messenger Kids. But yeah, then you have the safety part that comes to the picture. So definitely these kids will ask for more play, more socializing, and they will be more keen to have this education online, but the form of how is that gonna shift our society is huge, and it will represent change. And for other generations that are a little bit longer, let's say Gen Z, they definitely enter an unstable job market, the new hiring routes, some include virtual internships, and gig economy, there is not necessarily the best out there. So they are, the good thing is there are a few good moments. They're not gonna be as millennials because they're more concerned about how they spend their money. They're more concerned about their savings. And among all those generations, let's say in Brazil, which is entering the greatest recession in 120 years, according to the S&P Dow Jones indices, the youth unemployment rate is 26.9%. And the UK study from the BBC Panorama also found that people aged 16 to 25 were more than twice as likely as older workers to have lost their job during the pandemic, and this definitely affect them, even if they made a small amount of money, but they definitely affect the confidence and like the way they feel to go back to this normal life. And the US surveys found that 73% of Gen Z and millennials say that COVID will shape their financial habits, and 27% are saying more than the paychecks. September 2020 survey found that 66.5% of Chinese youth have balanced approach of budgeting and spending when needed by trying to save when possible. So it's definitely recession generations, and they will be very focused in how they spend and what the limitations are, because that's something else. Like not everyone can make the same amount of money that even older millennials are making at the time. So that's a little bit of the approach.
Yeah, then this also reminds us, just like David's presentation, of how, you know, the things we wear are inevitably connected to the psychology of clothes, and how the cultural trends in fashion today are reflecting on that. And this allows me to ask you, David, about health and well-being in fashion today. You mentioned that, you know, COVID brought us comfort and that sporty vibes are nowhere to be gone. So what about this other more psychological component?
Yeah, I think Rosalina, I mean, she covered a lot of points there, but of course, the mental health is a major issue with the younger generation. And of course, what's happened is we reverse everything, that the older generation, we're happy and the kids are unhappy. So everything is upside down. But one of the things that I feel about COVID is it's made us much more health aware. And the biggest growth in business is going to be not in telecommunication clothing, but in telehealth. digital health, doctors on the main line, this kind of stuff. So we have this whole thing that we all got into cleaning. Everybody became germophobic. Oh my God, is that a clean surface? So we had all these people, you know, Sophie Hinchliffe, 3 million followers, just how to clean your stove. And of course, Chrissy and Chris starting their whole big line about, you know, safety products and cleaning products and the whole thing. And the whole thing about showing I'm vaccinated, I'm not vaccinated, health became a public issue. So I really wanted to look at the whole thing about sanitation and how it affects clothing, because really, protection could be a big part of clothing. We had the masks, you're still wearing masks, we're not wearing masks. There were masks for political reasons, there were fun masks, there were really couture masks, and there were space age masks, and now we've got masks which can translate for you into languages for you, and we've got the whole thing about touch. I always felt that gloves would become a very, very big, important part of the catwalk, and they slowly have been. Not as big as I thought, but anyway, they were there. And cooking in gloves, Paris Hilton. But what's interesting is this whole thing that sanitation becomes important in our design, not just for clothes, but how we keep our phones. Do we clean our earplugs? You know, we don't have to have boring perspex. We have beautiful screens to separate you from me. In the cars, we're sitting in a car, which is absolutely purifying us and debugging us and keeping us fresh. So the whole thing is about designing with that in mind. And of course, the famous Volbach, who started the whole thing about protective clothing, couldn't have been more right. So there's a whole movement in Europe to look at how we can treat textiles to make them protective. And copper is huge at the moment. We're looking at copper ways of doing textiles, copper in seating, how we'll be in a cinema, how we'll be in, and even sweatshirts to coat them with anti-COVID, antimicrobial textiles will be very, very big wherever we go. The big thing is that, you know, what COVID did for us, we were all like, oh, we hate the internet. We hate it all because it's made us antisocial and our children hang out in sort of bedrooms and never come back. But suddenly, oh, thank God for the internet, you know, not just for buying groceries, but for our health, for communication, with taking in touch. And I've always said, scientists are the new sex. Whatever you do, people, don't marry a banker wanker, don't marry a fashionista, marry a scientist, because they are the future. Because the next decade is not going to be about clothing and decoration, it's going to be about innovation and technology. And all the money in the banks and everywhere is going into climate technology and innovation technology. We had nothing in the last decade. 2010 to 2000, you tell me one technical innovation we had. Selfies, that was about it. In the 2000 to 2000, we had the telephone, that was massive, nothing. So this decade is about really roaring into it. And robotics will become bigger, not just for the safety, but for the money. We can't find staff, we can't find people to work in coffee bars, and above all, farming. We all want to have natural products, organic products, but find the bloody farmers because they're not there anymore. They're getting very old and nobody wants to do farming. So we'll have robotics. Of course, that will create a kickback. There will be the Luddites. We don't want technology. We don't want to go here. We have to go back to how it was. We have to go back to regenerative earth and the soil. And it will kick in a whole thing about privatization. Am I being spied on? Yes, it's good for the world. It's good for your health. We're going to look at you and look after you. But everything we're doing, people are watching, people are monitoring, people are gauging. Cybercrime has never been so big. It's absolutely huge. So we did a whole thing, a whole color story based on this kind of technology, sort of mixing the laboratory with water, because water is very, very important. And it was like looking, how do we sort of hybridize nature and technology? And with this whole very, very deep blues, scientific blues, water blues, very, very cool, very, very modern, very, very 3D printed, looking at also in basics like sportswear and very, very sort of easy things to wear. So the technology is influencing us. It's the whole decade is about technology. It will influence our clothing. It is influencing our color. And I just want to show a little bit of a lovely film, makes me cry every time I see this film, about you can't stop technology. It is going to run our lives.
David, this is such a fascinating diagnosis.
Have I got time to show this?
Of course.
It's beautiful.
Is the pharmacist in here? I'm looking for 10 liters of Lee groin.
You won't get those stains out of that dress. Better buy a new one.
It's not for my dress. It's for my carriage.
You try to poison your horses.
Do you have 10 liters or not?
So that was Bertha Benz, the wife of Mercedes-Benz, driving her car. But it's such, you know, this is a decade of technology. Forget the rest. You back?
Sanitation, health awareness, you know, the hybridization between technology and nature. It's a very fascinating vision in order to also understand the most philosophical aspects of the zeitgeist and the human condition. But Rosie, in terms of Latin America, I think it's inevitable to also look towards our political climate, which is something that I want to ask you about how our own context and, you know, the turmoil, the social protests, the women's movement, and the polarization in many of our countries where we're also seeing like right-wing power institutions. So how do you see the political climate in Latin America having an impact on our current possible fashion trends?
Well, I think it's not a surprise that political and economical and social tension, they were already setting the tone for Latin America over the past couple of years, were intensified by the coronavirus pandemic, and the growing of polarization of the population is dividing individuals in every social aspect across the region. And I think this happens in all America. Argentina and Brazil have political allies. They have been political allies for decades, but they currently is stranger due to the ideological difference within the presidents, even beyond political preference. Countries, people, and everything in society are kind of like splitting in current topics. And the same with dealing with the pandemic and everything you mentioned, like what rights do I have, the disparities in like who gets more attention, who doesn't, and the absence of government initiatives to support that might provide also hope and a sense of security. But individuals are initiating actions, particularly through the online platforms. Marginalized groups are mobilizing, and more privileged people are fundraising, offering support to raising awarenesses and issues via the internet. So even if we hate the internet, it's definitely a platform where we can amplify some voices that are not there to be heard. Everyone in the American society is very divided, political, and they have very different civic views. As I mentioned before, it's very 50-50 at the time. And like the preference of like more liberal approach for constitutional new orders following feminist movements. We have recently news from Mexico, and radical reforms looking for more representation and attention to more underrepresented communities. These trends also represent an impact taboos that we never discussed before, brands and new social media outlets, mostly for strict activists, but also for social media. They have become the new way to find more transparent opinions and to find an outlet that people can actually speak up. Sites like Malvestida in Mexico, or their podcast, Corriendo con Tijeras, Betches in USA, that they use and share this kind of topic, but they do a little bit more with humor and a little bit more of satire. And I think that's something that is refreshing to see as well for a younger approach, or for like actual change to happen. But recently looking in general to represent more society and amplify voices. This has an impact also when we try to like think about trends, which is the main subject here. It gives a different conversations. The brand has to like review values and adjust to what the consumer wants, even if the terms of visions of the company. This will end recovering the loyalty for that final consumer, becoming a more stronger brand on a long run. And this is definitely happening in Latin America. I know it's a lot harder to make companies change or make these changes or make like these positive changes within the company, because it doesn't necessarily immediately represent in money, but on the long term, I think it will be very important for them to do. This has happened everywhere. We even saw in the latest news with the whistleblower from Facebook, and how she recalls that taking actions that probably based on instant profit for the company will affect the company in the long term. And I definitely agree on, like, because when I don't trust the platform that I am, like I don't really know if I want them to know everything about me. I don't really know if this is going to be good for my children or it's going to be good for society in general. It's definitely something that I need to be regulated. Facebook is huge and it's global, but like companies can do like some little fixes in Latin America that will make at least prepare them for the near future, where they need to be more in tune with what society wants.
That is very interesting, because it's also a challenge that we're seeing here in Colombia. There's a lot of tension, and like digital activism is being very important for the current like youth generations in terms of the politicization of fashion. So it's very interesting. And David, I want to ask you about an also fascinating topic when it comes to hacking the system from the youth segments, and it's gaming and fashion.
Yeah. I thought, Rosalina said two things before. She talked two words, digital and play. And I said there hadn't been any technology in the last decade. Well, gaming is a huge part of the current technology. And really, I've got to tell everybody in your audience, teachers, do you know how to teach your students how to design on the metaverse? It's no good designing CAD/CAM. Do they know how to design on the metaverse? We had a lot of gaming in the lockdown because, chess took off, lovely film, The Queen's Gambit. Everybody's playing at home. But of course, it was digital gaming that really took off. Traditional way, there's no point talking figures. We're just talking billions and big increases. And girls started to play gaming, and electronic sports really took off, led by the Koreans, clothing design for electronic sports. This was a real growth area. And of course, being in fashion, we're not stupid. We were all part of this game playing and digital representation. Kalana Strada, of course, very strong, and Balenciaga, super leaders, lovely catwalk story. They did the whole thing with the cartoon. I don't know if you've seen it, but absolutely understood the spirit of the moment. This is about gaming. So really combining both worlds in the next thing, really strong. So what I'm saying is that what the telephone did for 2000 to 2010, the iPhone, gaming is going to do for this decade. We will do everything through gaming. We will make social connections through gaming. We will market through gaming. We will make social statements through gaming. We will do health through gaming. And well, everything will be through gaming. And we've had huge revolutions on the stock market with companies like GameStop really attracting a lot of private investment. And of course, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which meant that art, suddenly digital art, was worth a lot of money, $11,000 to have Kate photo picking, you know, things which are not worth anything, just digital representation, you know, Gucci selling the sneakers, you know, on the whole thing about doing, you can't wear them, but you could put them on your digital thing. And absolutely skins, I don't know if it's true, but this market is going to be worth, you know, 250 million users, God knows, 36 billion pounds, people just using skin fashion for avatars. So what we have, and people don't seem to realize this, we have blockchain technology, we have non-fungible tokens, cryptocurrencies, augmented reality, haptic touches, artificial. It's the perfect storm, and it's all coming together now to really change things. You know, you won't go to concerts like Fortnite, the huge attraction game thing. You know, Ariana Grande did her concert not in a stadium, she did it on Fortnite. You know, the whole thing was really, really strong. And they got this program in America called Alter Ego, and you don't go and sort of sing with a microphone, you go and you perform with your avatar.
Whoa.
Magic.
Whoa.
So we're really mixing things. And of course, you know, we had this with Second Life in 2010. It didn't work, but this definitely is going to be the future of retail.
And in order to get a contextual perspective.
Wait, I haven't finished.
Sorry, so sorry, David.
We're all going to be doing this digital thing, and of course, with MR, mixed reality, and absolutely augmented reality, it's going to be huge. So already in the market, we're seeing people mix presentation, furniture. It's half digital, it's half real. We can't sort of define the difference anymore between what is digital and what is real. This was the launch of a collection by St. Martin's with Puma. Everything was launched digitally. So where is the real and the digital ends, you know? Should I design on the metaverse and then make it real in the real world? Or should I design in the real world and make it happen in the metaverse? So we did a whole thing about colors, which kind of reflect this whole new feeling of, oh, it's positive, it's not pastel sweet, it is mood altering, it is energy giving, it is virtual and imagined. It's a whole way of looking at blended reality. So we don't know anymore what is real and what is not real. And this goes back very much to what Rosalina was saying, you know, how the digital is going to be really, really very, very much part of our world. So in the design world, we really got to get ready to teach people to design on the metaverse. It's a very new thing.
It's very fascinating to see all of this in terms of even like I was saying, like philosophical and sociological dimensions. And Rosie, in order to get a more contextual perspective when it comes to Latin America, how do you see the social media like affecting the current landscape and also the way that trends are researched right now in the local market?
Yeah, Vanessa, well, first of all, David, you're clicking all the boxes there with all the trends, amazing. And about social media, it definitely, we don't have one social media, what platform, we have one that fits everyone. So some people go to TikTok, which is like the main introduction of like what's becoming or is giving that part of real-time fashion, because it happens faster, and I think is somehow more authentic than other platforms as like Instagram and so on. But TikTok, you have Clubhouse, that it might be educational or it might be informative for people, and where you don't really have to use your face, you only use your voice and your intention to provide information for it, or like to have conversations, even if it's like for a little bit of escape. And that follows this trend this follows this narrative of like, oh, I don't want to be like, against the gaming part, I don't want to be always on screen. I don't want to be there as I want to be only a voice on the like the part of podcast they give me. But TikTok definitely has changed and has shifted the way we look at emerging trends. celebrities, personalities, and before we will use, I don't know, like vintage historical pieces for ideas in product design. And now we see strong trends coming out from social media, especially TikTok, which I mentioned before. And brands do have to somehow adapt of what the consumer is asking in terms of product. Also, you are developing a new economy. I recently saw the TikTok's 7 highest earning stars in a Forbes report, and they have teen queens, they have Addison Rae, they have Charlie D'Amelio, and it's like people that I don't even know or recognize, and it's like they have so much following, and it's like insane that you even create new careers like content. Everyone wants to be a content creator nowadays because you have to do a video, you have to do your photo, you have to spend half of your day doing this very small amount of TikTok content that will be very important, even for your persona, for your brand, or for a brand that you want to be an ambassador of. Other things that I mentioned before is how the real-time fashion has also used micro-influencers. And it's not about the big influence. Like, of course, I want Kim Kardashian to use whatever I have, and I'm sure I will have a lot of recognition of my brand if I'm starting, if I'm a brand that is already in the market and I just want to get huge. Definitely, that will give you that amplification of like views. But when I go with micro influencers, I also get real people to actually connect to my brand or like to connect to that kind of product. And that gives another perspective also to the person that is buying the product. I believe in this person, and it can be in YouTube, it can be in TikTok, it can be everywhere. And something else that happened in TikTok is also they creating fashion content trends. And we have a few, let me go through some of them. Like the outfit of the day vlogs, where people tell you what they're wearing that day, and they give you, like, I can show the photo here so you can see it. They show you what they're wearing that day. You can see it there?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, they show you what they're wearing that day, and this has grown expansion like insane. No? There, you have to present the personality of the product. You have to utilize the short form content in order to be a brand or to be a blogger or be a TikToker. There are some ideas that we have over here that can be interesting. Also, the fit models. Even people in TikTok are telling their brands, I bought your thing, and I bought your product, and I'm this size, and it doesn't really look the size that it needs to be looked. So they're asking for like, okay, I want to buy this online, especially now because we have to buy everything online. How can you have a more fitted and trustable fit chart that I know I can buy every time from you, and I can do this? Or like other things like normalizing bodies, like I'm taking this look from a model and I look like this in real life, and it's perfectly fine and perfectly accurate. So that's another type of fashion creator. I have the personal shopper that there's even one they will tell you what's new in Zara, and all the time that you see, it follows you in Facebook everywhere. No, not in Facebook, it follows you in Instagram, it's the same thing. It follows you in Instagram all the time, and I'm like, I don't want to see what's new in Zara. If I want to see it, I will go there. But there are even accounts that they create that kind of content, so you know what's there, and maybe you will want it or not. But they're getting a lot of attention, and they will tell you what brands are good, what brands you can go through. And this has definitely changed the conversation. The one, like, if there's even trend talks, you can go on TikTok and learn about the same trends that we're discussing here, but someone, there is a new creator is telling you about and what the experience are, and like how they describe these trends that are like experienced everywhere else. So I think those are fun. Gamified challenge as well, and they go with content, or they go with challenges that will go viral as well. So I think it's very interesting how this is shifting the way we actually predict trends. And some of the, before I do a presentation or before I'm like preparing something that is like more focused in a certain area, I will ask even the clients, like, can you log in your TikTok account? And if you don't have one, you will just use it today for that. And to see what the trends they show in their country are. It's just a way to see like what's going on. Like, oh, well, Do you want to do a campaign on that? Do you want to talk about that? Or do you see something that is actually related to product or to fashion? You definitely have to work something around that. And that's definitely something that we didn't really do in the past. And I think it's fascinating how that shifting is happening and making things a little bit different. Also, in this part of like live streaming and social media, I think Tommy Hilfiger just made a live streaming with Mariana Zaragoza y Paco de Miguel. And they were like, the consumer were able to, it's a little bit of like gaming and playing a little bit with the live streaming thing. For me, it's like an infomercial from all the time that you saw it on TV, and the baby boomers will like go in and buy things. But like now they're doing it for younger generation. This was in Mexico City, and this is how they did like experience. And if I was actually like that live streaming, I could like put things spiritually into my shopping cart and buy it from there. But they were telling what were their favorite styles, what they like, and it's just a different way of creating this kind of communication and revising this part of trend studies, if that makes sense.
We were able to only scratch the surface when it comes to topics of dystopia and utopia and maybe like new experiences when it comes to stores. Unfortunately, I have to close the panel, but I want to thank you both. And I also want to insist on how this conversation is a further demonstration of how fashion is such a plural and multiple category that, you know, it leads us into the most diverse aspects of the human condition. We spoke about, you know, the spirit of the times. We're talking about social media, consumerism, the way we consume things, the way we see things. So thank you so much for being a part of this and for illuminating us in how trends have shifted and are still important in looking at how fashion can lead us to critically read the zeitgeist of our time. Thank you so much, Rosie and David, for joining us.
Thanks
and to the audience.
for inviting us. I hope the audience liked it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.